and welcome back to We Met Behind the Castle. Today I thought we would jump on here because it is a very stormy day here in Orlando as Tropical Storm Debby makes her way through the Gulf Coast and into the west side of Florida. It sends a lot of rain over here to Orlando and some winds. So as you can see from the video here at the house, it is a rainy day. We didn't go out to the parks to film because there's just a lot of rain in the area. There's going to be some flooding. And I felt like it was not a good idea to go out with the camera and really try to film anything because we like to go outside and venture into the parks and resorts. So we're gonna make this video because I felt like we can talk a little bit about tropical storms, hurricanes, what Disney does, what Universal does, when those storms do come, what happens with events that come during those times, when hurricane season is and when you can expect those tropics to kind of pick up, and when's the best time to come to Walt Disney World to try to avoid that stuff and everything else that comes along with storms. So this is going to be called our stormy day video because I kind of want to cover some things that we do here in Orlando when we do get some storms. Hurricane season does start June 1st and runs all the way through September 30th. So if you're coming to Walt Disney World and you're going to want to experience some of the things happening during these months, just be aware and pay attention to the tropics. If you go to the National Hurricane Center, you can actually see tropical waves that form down around Africa, right around the coast of Africa was where they start. And they take a couple weeks to get here depending on how quickly that storm can move across the water. But you usually have a couple of weeks to prepare yourself in case there might be a storm that's sitting out there that might come up here to Florida. And we can talk a little bit about ones that have come up here in the past. Hurricane season being that long, people wonder, are there storms constantly during that time? And I think the answer is no to that one. So we typically will get storms August and September. That seems to be when they really pick up here in Orlando. That's the times recently that we've had to prepare ourselves for hurricanes and tropical storms and any kind of those tropical systems that come through here and bring a lot of rain and wind. But Walt Disney World does get those storms, and they will close if the storms are big enough, and we can talk a little bit about that next. But I just wanted to jump on here and talk a little bit about the fact that Tropical Storm Debby, which is the storm that is currently moving through West Florida and off the coast of Florida up into Florida over the next coming day or two, is not a threat to Walt Disney World. Both of them have stayed open. The only park that I saw that did close was Busch Gardens Tampa Bay, and actually closed around like 9 this morning. So it actually delayed opening and then announced that they were going to fully close up that park until tomorrow, where they can assess any kind of damage that flooding might cause or wind. So let's jump in and talk about flooding, winds, and what to expect here in Orlando when these storms do come. I've been here now for 10 years and I lived in South Carolina my whole life since I was 5. So I lived there for about 17 years. And there are a lot of storms and a lot of tropics through these two states, Florida especially. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what can we expect if hurricanes come through Florida. So it really just depends, honestly. It depends on the angle in which the storm comes in through. It depends on how early it makes landfall, where the eye of the storm actually hits land, and just how much of an impact that storm will be based on the category in which it is. So depending on the category, that's the amount of impact that it will have in Orlando. And the higher the category, the more dangerous it is for all of us here in Orlando and on the coast here in Florida. These storms are very unpredictable. They do move quite a bit. So if we are in the cone of uncertainty, so that's the cone that actually shows like a projected path and what days they're going to get here, what category of storm they're going to be, and what the wind damage is going to be like. Surge level is really what you're concerned about. But because we live in Orlando, you don't really have to worry about surge. You do have to worry about flooding with the different lakes and different ponds that we have. We're tons of lakes around here. We're like the land of lakes, honestly. We have a ton of lakes that sit here around Walt Disney World, so that can cause problems as far as trying to get into Walt Disney World and around the property itself. There are tons of man-made lakes that are filled to the brim constantly because hurricane season is during the rainy season here in Florida. It causes some chaos when it does rain here quite a bit through a hurricane. So a couple years back we had Ian, and Hurricane Ian reached Category 5, Category 4 when it made landfall, which is a massive storm. So Category 5 and Category 4, those are the ones that are really, really dangerous because they do bring tornadoes, they bring tons of flooding, lots of trees go down, all sorts of different things to factor in with those hurricanes, especially if you're from the coast. The coast is only about an hour and a half away from Orlando, so about 90 miles, I think it is, from Walt Disney World property. That doesn't mean that the ocean can reach us, but it does mean that we're going to get some big time winds if it does come in off of the coast at the right angle. So because Florida is so long in a kind of a peninsula shape, it does require the storm to kind of come in at an angle to really impact Florida, because if it hits and comes up through the bottom of Florida, it will slow down quite a bit before it gets to Orlando. But if it comes in from like the Fort Myers, Tampa Bay area on the west hand side, or the west side, or like Daytona and that side over here on the east coast, if it comes in from the side, that's where you can see some really, really powerful storms impact here in Orlando. We haven't had, luckily, knock on wood, some of those storms since I think Hurricane Andrew came through in the 90s. So we've been really lucky and fortunate. We've had some big storms come through since we've lived here, and that's just kind of what to expect. A lot of rain, a lot of downed trees, a lot of wind. So those are kind of the conditions. You got to be careful for the spin-off tornadoes, because those do happen quite a bit, and they do impact Central Florida and this area here where Disney World and Universal are. So that's kind of what you can expect, just depending on the size of the hurricane, the category. So 3, 4, and 5 are massive, massive hurricanes that can really cause some damage. 1 and 2 can, but they're a little bit obviously de-escalated from the other 3. If they get into that 3 range and they come in at the right angle, that can be very devastating to all sorts of different areas. 2 and 1, I mean, the houses here are usually made to withstand those. But once they start to range into that 100-mile-per-hour winds, that's where it can get really dangerous for here in Orlando. A lot of people will ask, what does Walt Disney World, what does Universal, what does SeaWorld do when these storms come? So the first thing that they're going to do, about a couple days out, they will start to inform the people that are coming, the guests that are coming, that a storm is inevitable or is coming, or it could come and impact the area. And so they will send out a warning to their hotel guests. So oftentimes they'll put on like the door handle information about what hurricanes do and what they can kind of expect. You'll be sent like a memo. Sometimes they bring like a piece of paper and like slide it under your door to give you as much as they can as far as facts about the hurricane or tropical storm itself. And then on that, it will tell you what the hotel or the resort will do specifically for those staying at Walt Disney World, or that will be in Walt Disney World that length of time when that storm is expected to make landfall and impact the area. They even send emails at times, or they will update. A lot of times they'll update or tell you to go to their social media pages to be updated on what they expect the storm to do as far as park closures or resort closures. So you will get communicated with, usually with these parks. They're very good about keeping their guests and people that invest in them very safe from these tropical storms and hurricanes. But if you don't know, I would definitely call your resort and ask them as far as what any information that they might have as far as bookings and getting there and the travel to the resort during a hurricane. Like I said, hurricanes are very unpredictable. We've had ones move very slightly, and it causes a lot more damage when they do move slightly because you're not quite expecting it. So for instance, we had Hurricane Irma back, I think in like 2016, 2017, where that hurricane was sitting at the bottom down towards Cuba, and it looked like it was going to start coming in towards like the west coast and up through Tampa and up to us, which was going to be really devastating to this area, Tampa Bay and Fort Myers. It did take a turn last minute and went straight up into the bottom of Florida, so it did have a lot of land to cover to try to get to Orlando. And by the time it did, I think it was around a category 3 or 2, like high 2, where it did have a lot of downed trees. We had tornadoes, we had tons of wind, tons of flooding, damages to homes that were like the manufactured homes or the like the trailers and different things like that. They actually had to close a couple of different parks and resorts, and I guess we can talk about that now. So when Disney does get word that there is going to be significant impact to the Orlando area, and usually that's like even a Hurricane 1, like category 1, they don't really play around. Tropical storms, like today we're going to experience the outer squalls, like rain and some wind from the tropical storm that's sitting out on the west coast, and we're going to see some of that. But we did not close. Tampa Bay, Busch Gardens did. So a lot of the ones on the coast will just close just to keep people safe. The ones in Central Florida, unless the hurricane is coming up and we're in the cone of uncertainty, Disney and Universal won't usually react. Now, if Orlando, Universal Studios Orlando, SeaWorld, or Walt Disney World are in that cone of uncertainty, that is typically when the park will react, and typically that means closure. Sometimes, depending on the strength of the storm when it gets here, they might not close, but I would say, especially nowadays, whenever that storm is going to go into Orlando and we're into that cone of uncertainty, Disney, Universal, and SeaWorld are really quick to react and close down the parks. So they will close the parks. The resorts actually won't close. The only one that closes for hurricanes, and they'll actually move guests that are staying in that resort to other resorts that they have room in, they will actually close Fort Wilderness. And the reason behind that is because there are tons of trees and down trees on the RVs and the smaller cabins there. These buildings were not really made, or these vehicles are not made to withstand, obviously, hurricane force winds. So they will move people out of Fort Wilderness into other resorts, whether it's their own, or they will call around to other companies and places that have partnerships with Disney to try to get people to rooms that are safe. People from the coast will actually come to Disney or around Disney in Orlando because we are so central to the state that we do not have the issues of storm surge. And storm surge is a much higher chance of fatality as far as like storms are concerned. So like a lot of fatalities that happen because of hurricanes happen because of storm surge, which is the water rising to certain levels and getting into flood zones in different areas like that. Those are the significant things that you really have to worry about. You have to worry about storm surge. You have to worry about what those storms can do on the coast. Here in Orlando, the only thing that really is dangerous from any of the hurricanes really are tornadoes coming off of them. You have a lot of flooding around here because of the lakes and the water. You do have to worry about downed trees and branches because those are very, very dangerous during this time and happen quite a bit. So that's what we see, those significant winds knocking down trees. We do lose power. That means AC. People do get generators and those go out, so those are some things to watch for. Like I said, some of these things you don't really have to worry about when we're in Orlando because we don't get storm surge. That is not an issue for us because the waters do not come up that high. If they do, then we reach some catastrophic proportions that we've never seen before. So storm surge, very dangerous. So if you are staying on the coast and you're coming to Walt Disney World, you might have to come from the coast into Walt Disney World because these are the safe areas to be because we're so inland compared to like Tampa, Daytona, Sarasota, Bradenton, those kind of places. So a lot of people will evacuate to Walt Disney World Orlando. It can be difficult to find places to stay during these times if a hurricane is coming and you've booked a trip and you're trying to find somewhere to stay and there's like an impending hurricane coming. Not that you would try to plan when a hurricane is coming to come down here, but some people do, or some people just don't know because they're not aware. So definitely check the tropics before you come during that time period, especially August and September. Like I said, those are the most active as far as hurricanes here. For some reason, we always get the ones that are like September 1st to like the 15th of September. That seems to be the really big window in which we get a lot of these hurricanes. And in the past, we actually talked about this quite a bit, is that we always seem to get the ones right around the September 9th, 10th, and 11th. It seems to always be the days that we're really watching the tropics because we got like 3 in a row during that time period. So for like 3 straight years, it was insane. So check the tropics before you come. Disney does everything in their power that they can do to keep people updated and informed. But again, a lot of it relies on you because they can't do all of it or communicate all of it to everybody because there's just so much unpredictable moments with hurricanes. What does Disney do when there are hurricanes? So they actually have what are called ride-out crews for their cast members. So they'll actually ask some of the cast members that work at the resort or around the resorts to come in, and they can even sign up in their cast member portal where they can sign up and be part of the ride-out crew. And the ride-out crew are people who will stay in the resorts because they don't really have anywhere else to go and ride out the storms. So what this usually entails is Disney will open up everything that they can as far as resorts are concerned. They even have entertainment come sometimes, so I know some of the characters have made appearances during the ride out to keep kids occupied and entertained, so they're not thinking about what else is happening outside of the walls of the resort. They will close the pools, they'll close all the outdoor activity things, but they will keep you entertained. A lot of times in the lobby they'll have games and recreation, they'll have movie nights, they'll have all sorts of different things. Like restaurants will try to operate and stay open. As far as quick service are concerned, I don't think any of the table services will stay open, but I might be wrong about that. I've never stayed at the resorts during the ride out crew, but I've had people who have had to stay at resorts during the ride out, so there's a lot of things. They'll have music, entertainment, they have games. They try to keep you as entertained as possible and keeping you as safe as possible inside of the resort, so that way you're having a good time while we wait out the storm to move on through the area. Disney does a really good job with this. Their customer service during this point is on point, because they know people are scared, people are unsure and uncertain of what this means and what could happen. But Disney does a wonderful job, and then you just kind of camp out at your resort for that day, because typically it's that day of where the hurricane's coming through that you have the ride out, and then maybe like a day later. But they have backup generators. The power is usually often restored very quickly at Walt Disney World. It's a very safe place to be during a hurricane, and people always talk about that's the place they want to be. And a lot of people actually will book hotels when they know that hurricanes are coming and they evacuate from the coast up into the Orlando area. They'll book them at Universal and Disney. And Universal does a similar thing where they do this idea of ride out, where they have team members on staff that will stay at the hotel and they will operate the hotel during these times, and keeping guests entertained, having characters, having those interactive, entertaining things and recreation to do inside, where they can keep kids and parents entertained. They'll do trivia and all sorts of different things. So Disney and Universal, very good about doing that. SeaWorld will usually just close. They don't really have like a resort specific to their park, but the Orlando parks will close and they will actually keep you entertained. And the parks do go into this like hurricane mode where you might even see it. So sometimes during like tropical storms or hurricanes, but right before hurricanes come, you visit the parks. One, they're empty. There's nobody there. Two, they usually will move a bunch of things inside. So for instance, the Pirates of the Caribbean shop, they'll try to move everything they can up against walls and tie them down. And it's an insane process to watch on how many cast members. They actually have cast members come in right before the storm, sometimes off their shift, to help them move everything that they can off of the stage and into areas that are safe so they don't blow around. It is an insane process to watch. Ashley's actually had to do some of it working at Magic Kingdom some. I never had to do it on program, but I do know it's a crazy process. They basically take everything they can off shelves and try to put them inside if it's like an outdoor shop. But it really is crazy to kind of see park operations around the times of hurricanes. I don't recommend you go out to the parks to do that. You also have to realize these cast members are working and have to get home as well. So they're having to drive through the rain and storms where you might just be a hop, skip, and a jump back over to the resorts. Well, these cast members might have to drive an hour back home into these storms conditions, as they do usually start right when the cast members are getting home. Disney will shut down the parks and keep them closed. And then before they activate the park, they're going to make sure that all the trees that are fallen down or limbs or the flooding has gone down. So there's actually, when they do kick back off and open the parks back up, sometimes there's lands and stuff that are closed still because of the different things that have happened, damages that have happened. So it is interesting to see them assess all this stuff and go through the parks and talk about these things, just because they're awfully they're awful. They're horrible things. The hurricanes are awful. They're nothing to play around with. But that being said, Disney, Universal, they keep you safe. They keep you well informed. And I've always thought they've done a really nice job as far as hurricane ride-outs. So it's a good place to be if you're going to experience a hurricane. Kind of jumping over to a different subject and off this subject of hurricanes, but kind of staying in the same realm, I guess. What happens when we come down and it's raining? There's a lot of thunderstorms. You know, we plan this trip months in advance, Logan. What are we supposed to do if it rains and we don't have anything to do and we can't be in the parks and we don't want to be in the parks? We can't go to the pools at the resorts. Can't enjoy the outdoor recreation that happens at Disney. Like, what can we do to occupy our time? First thing that I would do, the first thing I would suggest is check out the restaurants. Go to the different restaurants, get on different buses. So for instance, if you're staying at Beach Club and you just want to use the buses, right? You could get on the bus at Beach Club, go to Epcot, get off there, and the train or the bus stations are usually covered pretty well. You can get off there, get on a bus for, like, I don't know, Disney's Animal Kingdom, because you can't get to the two unless you Uber without using the bus system and kind of jumping and transferring to different buses. Try some of the resorts. Go to other resorts. That's the one thing that I would say in restaurants. That's the one thing I would do. If I was staying at a Disney resort and I could get access to the other resorts, which you can through, again, using those bus stops, you can typically get to the different resorts on property. And if the buses are closed for some reason, like there's serious lightning and they're not letting anybody stand in the bus stops, then I would definitely just use an Uber. Use the minivan service. And go to different resorts if you've already seen your resort enough. Most of the moderate and deluxe resorts, the lobbies are in the same, like you can get to different places throughout the resort through the lobby. Obviously, like the value, like Pop Century and those outside of the main lobby, you can't really see anything anyway, but you're kind of contained into that main lobby. So pick a resort that's got a bigger lobby. For instance, Yacht and Beach Club, that's two resorts and they're connected indoors. So you don't even have to exit the building to get between the two. And there's probably all sorts of recreation going on inside, because sometimes they'll have like coloring books for the kids, they have TVs, great seating, they have different lounges you can go to. Staying in the resort network, that's number one on my list, and trying some of the resorts just kind of goes hand in hand with the resorts themselves, because I do feel like those are really good places to just kind of hunker down and wait out some storms. You get some great photos outside of the windows. You can kind of hear the sounds of the rain sometimes. They even have like porches and balconies that are covered that you could sit out on. So for instance, the boardwalk, they have a great place to kind of sit out there and hang out. And actually the boardwalk is covered for the most part, where you could probably get to their gift shops and some of the restaurants staying undercover or staying relatively dry with ponchos. I would say boardwalk's a really good place to be. Beach Club and Yacht Club, Disney's Animal Kingdom would be an excellent place to be. Because their lobby is so huge and they've got good lounges, and you can get to like different quick service areas and different parts of the resort, rocking chairs and stuff, without having to go out into the rain. I guess Disney Springs would be a good spot to be, but just know that it's not really covered very well. You'd have to run through the rain in quite a bit of the different places. I guess Co-op at Disney Springs. Actually, let's make this number 2. Disney Springs would be a good place if you can find things to do where you can stay inside the same building. So for instance, World of Disney's crazy during the rain storms, because everybody kind of just jumps into that building. But going to places like Basin, we've gone to Basin when it's rained a couple times, which is the baths and bodywork kind of place over by World of Disney. That's a good place to hang out and pretty quiet usually. The Co-op, that's a really good spot to be, because the Co-op's big enough where you can spread out and there can still be a lot of people in there and it doesn't feel too crowded. We have been there when the Penn store can get really hectic, because people just kind of hover and stand because they're just trying to get cover. They're not actually trying to shop for pins at that point. So that's a difficult one to be in. The Art of Disney store is a really good spot to be in. We've been in there a couple times when it's rained. That's a really good spot. Obviously, the movie theater is a really good spot, because you just go jump in and see a movie or eat at the bar or the restaurants there. And it's all connected to dine-in and the regular movie theater. Where else would be a good spot to kind of... There is that place... Okay, so right when you get down from the Orange Garage and head right towards like the Coca-Cola and Planet Hollywood's over here, you go right and there's kind of like a covered, I think it's like the bottling area, and it's got the covered roof and there's like 8 to 10 shops in there. It's a good spot to be. You can shop in those shops while it rains. And then there's like the outdoor covered area, so people aren't always just going into the stores. They kind of just hover into that little spot and you can get into the stores, and they seem to be less busy during the rain because they have that covered section where people can sit outside of the stores. It's kind of like an outdoor mall with a covering for 8 or 10 of the shops there. World of Disney's chaos. Again, the restaurants. The restaurants are really good spots to be. You can go up to the bar, grab a drink. If you have reservations or you can make reservations, then that's what I would do. You're just going to wait there anyway. So you can say, hey, just put me on the list and we'll just wait for the Boathouse or wait for Paradiso or whatever it might be. Lego shop, it's crazy during the rain. We've been in there a couple times, and a lot of times they have like a line anyway to try to keep the number of people inside the Lego shop out. So it can be a chaotic store to be in. If Circus Soleil is doing a show, you could jump in there and do that. That's a really good way to entertain yourselves. Obviously, AMC Dine-In Theater, I just said, or the regular movie theater. Splitsville, excellent place to go. They usually have lanes available unless there's a private event, so you can just go right up to the lady and say, hey, or the guy, and say, yeah, I want to do some bowling and eat. And there you go. So Splitsville, great spot. Disney Springs is a really good spot to be when it rains because there's a lot to do. You can actually get to one of the resorts if you really wanted to walk through rain. You could get to, what is it called? Saratoga Springs over there. Trying to think of anywhere else in Disney Springs that you could kind of check out while it was raining. I guess Amorette's is a really good place if you want some dessert. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of places to go. You can go in a lot of the Disney Springs places, and I think it's one of the best places to be when it storms or it's raining and it's not raining too hard because you can throw on some rain jackets and kind of explore. Uniqlo, that's another good one to go into because it's so big. But yeah, Disney Springs, I guess, would be number 2. Number 3, I guess staying in the parks. Let's say we're going to the parks and it starts to rain and it's going to rain for a couple hours. Any of the shows, honestly, like Festival Lion King if you're at Animal Kingdom, PhilharMagic if you're at Magic Kingdom, Tales with Belle, that's a really good spot because it takes up quite a bit of time. Yeah, Festival Lion King is 30 minutes. The Finding Nemo show over at Disney's Animal Kingdom because it's a bit of a longer show. I'm trying to think of longer shows that would keep going. Frozen Sing Along, great spot to be. In line for Rise of the Resistance. In line for Mickey's Runaway if you're indoors, I guess. In the indoor part, it is covered with some umbrellas, but anywhere that has a long ride, like line, and it's an indoor attraction, is a great place to be during a storm. So there's been times where like it's rained and we've been like, you know what, let's just go hang out in Dinosaur because Dinosaur's covered, although you might not be able to hang out there much longer. But yeah, like any of those shows like Lion King, you can just get back in line and see it again if you really wanted to. And it's worth seeing it a second time. But yeah, I think anywhere that you can get in as far as an attraction that's indoor, that's not going one-on-one because of the storms, getting in line and waiting for an attraction that you might not wait for otherwise, like Peter Pan, that'd be a great thing. Like, especially if it's going to rain for an hour, you might as well just go stand in line, right? Because you're going to sit down somewhere and just kind of camp out. Why not get in a line and experience an attraction that you might not have gotten to experience yet? That's a good way to get some things done. Another thing, if you're in Epcot, definitely just stop in. If you're going to get stuck in the rain anyway, you might as well stop in one of the pavilions and do some shopping. Any of the pavilions, honestly. Well, that being said, there are some ones that I think I'd stay in because they're bigger, like Japan. They have the big shop there. China's pavilion is a good place to be. Norway's actually got a good shop. It's got a bigger shop than some of the other countries. Countries I wouldn't want to be stuck in as far as storms are concerned at Epcot. Canada, unless you're going to go to the show. Canada, because their shop is so small, it's going to get very crowded. I would say the Italian pavilion, they've got small shops that I wouldn't necessarily want to be in. I would even say France to an extent, unless you're going to go back. Maybe do, like if you're going to be in one of the countries, do France, do the show, and then, which is the Beauty and the Beast show. And then you exit out into that gift shop, and then they have a quick service restaurant with tons of food, and they have huge gift shops, and they have seating inside of that gift shop. So that's a good one to be in. Trying to go like country by country. Japan, obviously good. Morocco and America are not good places to be stuck when it rains, just because there's limited places you can go, unless you're going to go see the American theater, or sorry, the American show out there. I'm blanking on its name right now. What else? I'm trying to think of other countries. Mexico, that's a good one to be in. Mexico's a really good pavilion to be in if it rains because you got the tequila bar there, you've got the ride, you've got gift shops, you've got the outdoor courtyard area. You could even maybe ask if there's reservations at San Angel. so that's a good spot to be in. I guess like the new connections area would be, or not connections, the new area would be good. Communicore Hall would be a great spot. There's not much to do in there, but you can hang out there. Go see characters, that's another thing too, at the parks. So I'm kind of lumping parks in here at number 3, in behind resorts and then Disney Springs. But yeah, honestly, I think the parks, if it is raining, you can still go. You will get wet, but there are certain things that you can do. You can kind of plan. You might even do that. You might even plan, like, you know, should it rain, what are some attractions that we can do to keep ourselves occupied, or where are some areas that we could be, or if we are in these areas, what are some things that we can do if it's going to rain all day, or if we know there's storms coming, where can we try to get to before the rain lets loose. So yeah, resorts and doing things, seeing characters and different things like that, I guess is all number 3. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else as far as rain's concerned that I can really think of as far as ways to entertain yourself. I mean, there really isn't. Resorts, they're a great spot to be. They're probably the best spots to be for rain. Disney Springs is great because if you have an umbrella or a poncho and you can do some shopping while you're walking in between shops and don't have to go, you know, 10, 20, 30 yards to go get to another store. They're literally right next to each other. The restaurants at Disney Springs, restaurants as a whole, for the whole thing, I guess that could have been number 4, and the resorts could have been separate, but yeah, restaurants are a good place to be. Parks aren't too bad when they storm. You just got to know where to go, and what to get in line with, or for. So yeah, I mean, rain's going to happen here, hurricanes are going to happen here. Disney's pretty well prepared for these things. You can buy ponchos, you can buy umbrellas, you can head back to the resorts. Indoor rides operate, restaurants still operate, shops operate, do very well during rainstorms. I can tell you from experience. Everybody comes into shops and buys things quite a bit, but ultimately there's a lot of things to do, a lot of things that you have to be prepared for when you come to Walt Disney World. Rainy season for Disney is pretty much throughout the year, but that being said, there are obviously months that it rains more, and those are the summer months. So starting in about April, May is when you're going to see a lot more storms. Once you hit into May or beginning of June through, I would say even until about September, daily storms are pretty normal for us. We always joke about the 3 o'clock parade and the 3 o'clock storms. Because it does feel like every time at 3 to 4 or 5 o'clock it storms here. And I will say over the last couple of weeks, every day about 5, 6 o'clock it's stormed here. So just be prepared, bring your rain gear if you're coming during the summer months. It's going to be hot, but it's also going to rain. So I know that's not ideal because you get cooked in a poncho when it's humid and hot, and then it rains and then you're wet and then you're soaked and then the sun comes back out, and it often does. It doesn't really ever rain here around the clock. Like if it rains, it's going to storm and it's going to rain hard for about an hour maybe, and then it'll stop typically. But you know, like the only time that it really rains all day is when we do have these tropical storms. But yeah, there's a lot of things to do in the rain. Hurricane season shouldn't deter you from booking any trips down here. Again, we get about 1 to 2 every year that probably threaten the coast. It's not often, but you can get seasons where you get 3 or 4 that come up through here. Knock on wood, we've only gotten like 1 or 2 the last couple that have been any kind of threat. So just be prepared, keep your eye on the tropics, go to the Weather Channel. You can even search hurricanes and hurricane season, hurricanes coming to Florida, and it'll often tell you the National Hurricane Service is the best place to go. That's where I go to get any information on the storms. We actually have this one currently, Tropical Storm Debby. There's a tropical wave that's kind of coming up behind her, it's further out, probably a week or 2 before it starts to get closer to here, like a week and a half. But it looks like it's going to go west more, but you never know. These things are unpredictable. So you could look at them one day and it's going completely west, and then all of a sudden the next day you didn't look at it, and then by the time you get here, it's coming up through Florida and you're like, what the heck? So they do change. They change daily, so make sure you know the paths. Make sure you know where to go in case something like this happens. If you're in the area and you brought a car, make sure to fill up on gas. Make sure to get as much water as you can. Do some DoorDash to the resorts if you know you're going to be hunkered down there for a bit. I would do some DoorDashes, or if you can get off property and grab some things. The stores will be crazy busy because the locals like us will prepare and will go get bread and water weeks before. So you might have a hard time finding some of these things, but like a Walmart or Target, try to find one of those. There's a couple right off of property. Bottled water, canned goods, anything that you can get that's non-perishable, to kind of prepare yourself. So, and usually at Disney, you don't have to get much, but having some of those things around can be nice because you can't get out of property sometimes for a couple of days. So it all just depends. Definitely keep your eye on the tropics. Ask your, if you have travel agents, ask them. If you have your reservations, you can call into the resorts and ask them, you know, what the deal is as far as any kind of money is guaranteed or money back. Like, I don't think they really give much of a refund for these kind of things, because you can get travel insurance and that's kind of what that's supposed to be for. So oftentimes I don't think they offer refunds. Another thing I wanted to mention before we jump off here, so if you're coming and there's events planned, so Mickey's Not So Scary, Halloween Horror Nights, the Craft and Brew, I think is the festival currently going on over at SeaWorld. Anything like that, like tickets or like buying tickets or advanced event tickets, are oftentimes not refundable, and they will actually move those things. So for instance, Halloween Horror Nights, they've actually added nights on at the end of the season if we've had hurricanes, but that does you no good if you came down here for September and they moved your one night you were going to go and they moved it to November. And oftentimes they don't really offer you refunds. You do have to talk to customer service or guest relations for those things, and I would say they don't typically. Because it says on the tickets, oftentimes it's not refundable, even with weather. It's just dependent upon your situation. I think some tickets are, some tickets aren't. Mickey's Not So Scary, I've seen them cancel them and move them. I've seen them put them the next day. Like they've done a lot of things. They're very flexible with some of those things, and then other things they can't really be flexible with because of the time of the year. So it really just depends. Definitely check out to see what you can do as far as buying travel insurance or anything like that. And if there aren't refundable tickets, just know that going in advance that you might not get your money back for reservations or whatever it might be. So just contact your travel agent, contact Disney, contact Universal. They can help you out with those kind of things. I'm not too abreast on what those things are or what they do for those, but yeah, this has been an interesting episode. Let me know if you liked it. I know it's a little bit different. I wanted to go out to the theme parks today. I was going to actually go and try some Lightning Lane had we not gotten this tropical storm coming through here. But again, I couldn't go out to the parks and really do anything. So I thought I'd just talk about why and some things that we can do because of why. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you will leave a like, subscribe, share, comment what you do during stormy days here at Walt Disney World. Are you scared of the tropical storms? What are some questions you might have as far as hurricanes and tropical storms? I'll try to answer them or try to find something that can answer them. But yeah, leave those in the comments below. Thanks for watching this video. We hope to see you guys in the next video, and we hope to see you guys at the parks.